Stop everything and look at the money in your pocket. That paper isn't just currency, it's the survivor of a high-stakes, blood-soaked political thriller that nearly strangled America in its cradle. Imagine a nation that is a failed state, drowning in $75 million of debt, with soldiers rioting for pay, and 13 separate colonies on the verge of civil war. But then, an orphaned immigrant named Alexander Hamilton decides to build a money monster to save the Union, while Thomas Jefferson prepares to burn the country down to stop him. Today, we go inside the room where it happened to witness the birth of the first bank of the United States. This is the shocking, true story of how a single building turned a dying experiment into the world's greatest superpower. You won't believe how close we came to losing it all. The year was 1790, and the American dream was dying. The smoke of the Revolutionary War had cleared, but in its place was a suffocating fog of bankruptcy. The United States was a nation in name only, a fractured collection of 13 jealous siblings, each clutching their own worthless paper money, refusing to pay their bills, and collectively owing a mountain of silver to the French, the Dutch, and their own starving veterans. In the temporary capital of Philadelphia, the air was thick with the scent of ruin. Soldiers who had marched barefoot through the snow of Valley Forge were now begging for scraps, holding continental certificates that were better suited for lighting fires than buying bread. To the empires of Europe, America was a joke, a collection of rebels who could win a war but couldn't run a grocery store. Into this desperate arena stepped Alexander Hamilton. An orphan from the Caribbean with a mind like a razor, Hamilton knew that for America to survive, it didn't just need guns, it needed credit. He sat at his desk, the candlelight flickering against his pale face, drafting a document that would change human history, the Report on a National Bank. He envisioned a central heart, a grand institution capitalized at $10 million, an astronomical sum that sounded like black magic to a country with zero gold. This bank would collect taxes, pay off the war debt, and issue a single unified national currency. But as the ink dried, a storm was brewing. Thomas Jefferson and James Madison saw Hamilton's plan and saw a ghost, the ghost of the British monarchy they had just fought to escape. To Jefferson, a national bank was a corrupt squadron, a tool for northern elites to enslave the southern farmer. The battle lines were drawn. Jefferson argued that the Constitution gave the government no power to create a bank. Hamilton countered with the necessary and proper clause, inventing the concept of implied powers that defines the U.S. government to this day. Washington himself was torn, caught between his two most brilliant sons. Hamilton stayed up for nights on end, fueled by coffee and the fear of failure, producing a 15,000-word defense that convinced Washington to sign the bill in 1791. When the bank finally opened in Philadelphia, a stunning temple of marble and Greek columns, the reaction was a shock. Within hours, the bank was completely oversubscribed. Investors from all over the world scrambled to buy a piece of the American future. Suddenly, the worthless paper of the Revolution was being traded for gold-backed banknotes. Credit began to flow like water through a parched desert. Factories rose, merchant ships sailed, and the United States was finally seen as a legitimate player on the global stage. For 20 years, the bank was the invisible hand that kept the American ship steady through the storms of global war.
Yet the hatred never died. The Jeffersonians viewed the bank as a foreign beast, noting that many stockholders were British. They waited for the 20-year charter to expire. By 1811, Hamilton was dead, silenced by a bullet from Aaron Burr, and his masterpiece was left undefended. In a move of staggering political spite, Congress let the charter expire by a single solitary vote. The doors were locked, the lights went out, the money monster was buried. But history has a cruel way of teaching lessons. Only a year later, the War of 1812 broke out. Without the bank to fund the military, the U.S. Treasury went dry. The economy spiraled into hyperinflation, and the British burned the White House to the ground. The very men who killed the bank were forced to realize that Hamilton's beast was the only thing that could have saved them. They eventually had to create a second bank just to save the country from total ruin. The story of the first bank is the story of America's growing pains. It teaches us that wealth isn't just found in gold, but in the trust we place in one another. It reminds us that behind every dollar in our pocket is a history of sacrifice, genius, and a relentless struggle to define what it means to be a nation. Alexander Hamilton's bank was more than just a financial institution. It was the bridge from a collection of colonies to a global superpower. It was the moment America decided to stop being a dream and start being a reality. It's incredible to think that the entire American empire almost died because of a single vote and a political grudge. The first bank of the United States was the forge where our modern world was hammered into shape. Now, I have a question for all of you. Do you think we still need a central power to control our money, or was Jefferson right to fear that money monsters would eventually take away our freedom? Does the government have too much power over our wallets today? What kind of story do you want to see next? The secret history of the 1929 stock market crash? The rise of the Rothschild banking empire? Or perhaps the wild, lawless days of the wildcat banks in the American West? Please let us know in the comments below. We read every single comment to decide our next deep dive. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the vaults of history. We wish you all a wonderful, prosperous day ahead, and may your own personal bank always be full. Until next time, stay curious and keep searching for the truth.